California private investigators, California private investigator applicants, private investigators to be in California. Where's everybody? This video is for you guys. During my community survey, you're always welcome to go back and put your input on the community survey. I asked what type of videos were you looking for. The majority of people on this channel want security management videos, number one, and then number two, the other half want tactics. They want me to discuss different employment issues, and these are usually private security that are on the field level. And about 7% of you are California legal investigators, California private investigators, or you want to be private investigator. I rarely see the comments from you guys, but I do have to assume that you're still watching. Again, there's 7% of you. So we're going to talk about this book, The California Legal Investigator. Do any of you guys have this book? This book is available on Amazon. It is still relevant. I think it was published 2017, early 2018. This is relevant for the 2021 private investigator exam. And the only thing that is tested a little bit differently in 2021 is the attorney-client privilege and the attorney work product doctrine. Those are really the only differences. They've been testing a little bit more on process serving. I've actually made some videos that address both of those issues. So right now, I believe that you have a complete study guide for the California Legal Investigator exam. So today's video, we're going to talk about interviewing juries, contacting the jury as a California private investigator. If you want to become a private investigator in California, or you are one, I hope you're watching, or I hope that you followed the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Today is the first day that the trial is concluded. It's concluded. A jury came back with a verdict of not guilty. If you watch the trial and you start to notice some rules of evidence being violated, you hear some motions that were on the table that were sustained or whatnot, and you're starting to recognize some of these things. You're starting to recognize hearsay evidence. You're starting to realize that the criminal defense attorney is allowed to ask questions that already have an answer to it. You're allowed to ask those types of questions, and the prosecutor has to really be careful on what they're saying. You don't want to bias the jury. Now, unfortunately, but fortunately to many in our criminal justice system, it's designed to protect the defendant. When the defendant's at trial, the defendant does get some constitutional guarantees. Now, there is some debate to that. But in today's video, we're going to talk about the jury. Okay, what are you allowed to do? So the trial has passed. We actually have a jury decision. Jury's been dismissed. The case is over right now. About 3 hours ago. What can you do if you're a private investigator and you're tasked with interviewing the jury? What are your abilities? Okay, and why do you want to interview the jury? Well, you want to interview the jury because you want to see what their thinking process is, so that next time, if you have a similar case, you can have a different case strategy based on perceptions of jurors, maybe some type of other recommendations. But in California, you are allowed to interview the jury. By the way, this is not legal advice, not professional advice. This is just my opinion, but I will cite some codes as well. So depending on the version that you have, on page 295, it might be 296 with you guys, I cover interviewing jurors. So it says here, on page 295, you can't harass them, embarrass, or criticize them. You don't want to contact the jury before the verdict. NCBS or NBC News, one of those stations, was following the jury. Now, was it a private investigator that was following the jury? I don't know. Was it a news anchor? I don't know. But you can't do that, especially before trial is over. That's just a big no-no. And it even says here, you guys, I even wrote it down here, never contact the jury before the verdict. Now, one argument might be, well, that by the news station following the jury when they left, or when they were bused back to wherever they're going to go, by following them, I wasn't going to contact them. You got to be really careful because contact in different states can mean different things. It could be attempted contact, physical contact. It could be contact by words or impressions. So you got to be really careful on that. It also says California Code of Civil Procedures 206B. It says the jury must consent and the discussion must take place at a reasonable time and place. So you can interview the jury. I'm going to make this clear after the trial, after they already came back with a verdict. You can interview them in California afterwards, but you have to follow these guidelines. So they need a consent, and the discussion has to be taken at a reasonable place and time. I'm reading this right here. After discussion, after 24 hours following the verdict, okay, 24 hours, you must, number one, inform the jury of the identity of the case. Hey, juror, I'm going to talk. I have some questions regarding Kyle Rittenhouse versus the state of Wisconsin, whatever it is. And then number two, what party you represent? Juror, I represent the defendant, or I represent the prosecution office. Okay. And number three, the subject of the interview. Okay, what are you going to be asking the juror? Hey, I just want to talk to you about your decision-making process. What came to mind? I'm really interested in getting your perspective. Not all the other jurors over here, but I just want your perspective. I'm really curious, and I really want to learn a lot more. And number four, the absolute right of the juror to discuss or not discuss the deliberations or verdict in the case. So you have to tell the juror, you have a right not to discuss the case with me. This is after 24 hours. Also, if multiple jurors refuse to speak to you, you can try to contact other jurors until you reach the last juror. A lot of them are going to refuse to speak to you. On the prosecution side, I was tasked with contacting a juror once the case was dismissed, and the interview was done with the prosecutor. Very, very intelligent prosecutor. She ended up going and becoming a defense attorney, and then now she's the judge. Okay, so now she's a judge, and it just goes to show you that this is a good thing to do, is interview the jurors, get their state of mind, get their thinking process, because at the time, there's no cameras allowed in the jury room, jury deliberation room. We don't even know what goes on inside. I can't even find any books or articles or reference manuals or other type of literature that talks about what exactly is going on in these jury deliberation rooms. A lot of the jurors, most of them don't want to write books about their trial. They don't want to talk about the strategy. They just want to go home, and that's it. So if a bunch of jurors stop refusing to speak to you, just keep going until you get the last one. And if the juror does not want to be contacted, leave them alone immediately. Okay, leave them immediately. I also cited a source from an attorney, Lisa Perochet. In 2012, she wrote a very interesting piece of literature, and she said that basically a trial can be declared a mistrial for a bunch of reasons. But she did talk about jurors. Now, in Kyle Rittenhouse case, he was not found guilty. He was found not guilty. But let's just say you have a guilty verdict. You're working criminal defense. What are some things that a jury interview can do? Well, on page 295, I explained that it can cover jury biases. It could reveal prejudging and refusing to deliberate. Okay, you have to deliberate as a juror. Jury intentionally disregards applicable law. The judge hands the jury foreman jury instructions. It's not all about how you want the case to be resolved. You have to follow those jury instructions. And the jury instructions are based off of the civil code. They're based off of the criminal code, but you have to use those instructions. I keep hearing all these complaints and other YouTube channels, social media channels, just saying that it wasn't right. There is just so much bias here. What they neglected to talk about is jury instructions. If you want to attack the criminal justice system, which definitely needs some reform, but we do have one of the better systems, you got to attack the jury instructions before these noteworthy cases begin. Go for the jury instructions, not go after individual prosecutors, defense attorneys, the judges, the jurors, because you get to, both sides have an opportunity of selecting the jury, by the way, but that's really discussed. But you guys, there's some things that definitely need to be done. If you want to change the way that a criminal justice system, if you believe that it's being systematically maybe racist, or it tends to be biased a certain way, attack the jury instructions before these noteworthy cases begin. Okay, another thing is this: a juror brings in evidence from the outside. So when they start to do internet searches or consulting with others, that can lead to a mistrial. Okay, you can't use these outside sources if you're a juror. Also, juror considers the effect of attorney fees, the availability of insurance, okay, or the party's financial condition. You can't. Juror wants the plaintiff to get an award higher than what instructions allow. Nope. Communicating with others about the case using social media such as Facebook and Twitter. If you're a private investigator, you can actually, you have opportunity to help your attorney pursue a case, or pursue the opportunity for a mistrial if you uncover a lot of these things that we just discussed. Okay, so in summary, when the jury, this is California, when the jury's dismissed, don't harass them. You could contact them and ask them about the case, and you don't have to follow all of these guidelines that happen after 24 hours. You don't have to follow the guidelines that are set forth in Code of Civil Procedures 206C. Okay, so the best time to contact them is right when they leave. Once they leave after 24 hours in California, your options are really limited, and you have to make these four disclosures. Okay, so that's my take on it. Please like this video if you like it. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions, concerns, please let me know. And that's it. So this is for you guys, California private investigators.